Welcome to Freedom to Learn, the podcast that champions choice in education, defends parental rights, and exposes the harm caused by school unions. I'm Jenny Gentles, Director of Education Freedom and Parental Rights at DFI, the Defense of Freedom Institute in Washington, D.C. With U.S. House Education and the Workforce Committee Chairwoman Virginia Foxx stepping down from her leadership role at the end of this congressional session, education policy circles are wondering who will lead the committee next. I've interviewed two top contenders, Representative Burgess Owens from Utah and Representative Tim Walberg of Michigan. This week's episode features Congressman Burgess Owens, who is a former NFL player, entrepreneur, and a staunch advocate for education freedom. Growing up in the segregated South with two educator parents, Congressman Owens witnessed firsthand the transformative power of education. In this episode of Freedom to Learn, Representative Owens will discuss the urgent need to revitalize our education system, including a bold proposal for a federal school choice tax credit. He'll emphasize the critical role of merit in creating a competitive free society and explore how we can build a system that puts students, not bureaucracies, first. We'll also dive into the challenges that stand in the way of real reform, from teachers' unions to ideologies that threaten to undermine our core values. Congressman Owens represents Utah's 4th congressional district. He played football at the University of Miami, followed by stints with the New York Jets and the Oakland Raiders. After retiring from the NFL, he transitioned to the business world, working in corporate sales and founding Second Chance for Youth. Representative Owens serves on the House Education and Workforce Committee and the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Stick around for the final segment of the Freedom to Learn podcast. Special myth-busting guest Darrell Bradford, president of 50CAN, is back to tackle the claim that education freedom programs are designed to benefit wealthy families. Congressman Owens, welcome to Freedom to Learn. I am so looking forward to delving into what the next congressional session might look like on the K-12 education front. We'll also talk a little bit about higher education. But I wanted to start with your story and your steadfast commitment to expanding education freedom. Could you share a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. Well, I grew up in the Deep South in the 60s. My dad was a college educator, so was my mom. I was able to understand the power of education because our community was really focused on making sure we can compete, that we can command respect. You can only do that when you can actually be productive and bring in some different ideas and thoughts to the process. So I grew up in a remarkable environment, went to the University of Miami, and then came out of NFL, played NFL for 10 years. I've been, since then, a corporate sales rep. I've been an entrepreneur. And I'll say this, probably the most important legacy I'll ever have when I look back on my experiences in life will be what we do here with education. Education is a true national security issue. And I look at it the same way as I look at our military. You know, we know how important it is to invest and make sure that we can protect our American citizens, that we can hold on to our freedom. Well, if we don't do the same thing within, we don't have our children learning how to read, write, think, to be proud of who we are, to understand our history and understand how we're becoming a more perfect union. If we don't do that, then we will rot from within. So that has actually been the problem we've had, and we need to make sure that we're addressing both K through 12 and higher ed to make sure our kids come out very, very productive.
So I hear you saying that you've got that educator in your family history. Do you think that influenced your interest in education and recognizing that getting education right is absolutely essential?
I had a chance to understand what it was when educators focused on making sure those that they can influence were learning. My parents was part of that group. Matter of fact, during the time I was growing up, teaching was a remarkably successful and respected occupation. I think particularly in the Black community, because the idea was how can we make sure as we broke out of segregation, command respect from other Americans, that we were truly, productive Americans could add to our society. So that was how we did it. We want our kids to go out and compete in the society and show that we can think, we can solve, we can run businesses, we can run families like anyone else can. And so that's what that community was when I was growing up. So no question, that's an example of the commitment my parents had. I understand what it is to have that focus, to have that commitment. And I think I pulled from watching that, my parents' commission and a passion for this. So I'm excited about being part of this solution. I think we're entering a part now where American people are really understanding the importance of this. So they're going to be part of the solution, along with legislators like myself, who are America first, who believe that this is something we have to do for our kids. You put that combination together with a president who's also going to make sure education is put in the right light. We're going to have some really remarkable opportunities in the next few years.
Definitely been laying the groundwork in your time in Congress. I've heard you say every child deserves a shot at the American dream, regardless of zip code. Yeah. How have your personal experiences inspired your support for that belief?
I think the biggest part of my experience was I grew up when education was a focal point by everybody, by parents, by the teachers. We didn't have the influence at that time of teachers unions, so we didn't see that. But we did have the focal point of making sure that we can compete. So I grew up at a time when, and this is what's so important to realize, even though we were a segregated community, the Black community led our country in the percentage of men matriculating from college, percentage of entrepreneurs, and percentage of men committed to marriage. So all those things kind of fall into being dreamers. If you can be a dreamer and have the vision to be able to go out and produce and compete, then the community benefits from that. So I lived it when around me, kids were aspiring to do great things. When I left Tallahassee, Florida, I went to Miami to play football, but the reason football was part of the process is I wanted that to allow me to have an education to become a marine biologist. So my dad's influence during the summers, he did research projects. That's what he was an agronomist, got his PhD in Ohio State. So being in that environment and realizing the possibilities, what can happen, it gives you a whole different view on America and the things we can do here. So that was probably the biggest part of my background, is having that environment growing up to see just how impactful education could be.
Well, you've come to Congress and been very active on the education front in your role on the Education and Workforce Committee. Talk to us about some of your accomplishments that you're really proud of there.
I'll say the thing that I'm most excited about is the highlight or the priorities that we've put on education. As a party, we've just never thought that was important. We kind of gave it to the other side. That's why it was called Education and Labor. Now it's Education and Workforce, because we focus on that piece of it, that skill-based information or process to get people ready to go out and get careers done. But my first term, I was the chair of the subcommittee for pre-K through 12. Right now, I'm the chair of the subcommittee of higher ed. So it gives me a good chance to see the entire picture of what we need to get done. And it's all about one simple thing. We need to bring innovation to this industry. Our education is still back in the 1800s. We still put our kids in a row of seats with a teacher up front, everybody teaching the same thing. The bell rings, we go to a different class. We need to be innovative. We need to, first of all, think about ways we can think outside the box of how we can address every kid's needs. We all think differently. We all have different passions. Well, how do we focus and get that done? And we have ways we're looking at doing that. We also have to make sure we're bringing respect back to the occupation. This is the only place, the only industry that has no free market influence. The only place we have great teachers that be paid as well as the worst teachers. The only place that the best teachers have innovative thoughts and ideas are so saddled that they end up leaving because they just get so frustrated. We need to figure out a way that the best of the best around our country that love this, like my parents did, that they can afford to come to this industry and give their talents. And we're looking at different ways of doing that. This is one thing that I'm so excited about because of my entrepreneurial background, because of my background of being raised in a time where I know the possibilities of what can happen. I think we have an opportunity for the next 4 years to bring the type of innovation to our school systems that we can not only bring respect back, bring the best teachers back, but have our kids leaving the top of the class, middle or end of the world in terms of where we stand, but at the very, very top of it.
Well, you founded a merit caucus, I believe, so that aspect of merit is important to you as well. What do you hope to see on that?
Merit is everything. Merit is what makes our country what it is. And I think it's important for us to recognize that the minute we start pulling merit away, we're losing the very soul heart of our nation. And we have to also understand this, and this is important. Education is something we almost take for granted, that we can just drop our kids off and then we taught the right things and they're going to come back and go to college and they're going to be running circles around us one day. Well, no, that's not what's happening right now. Because we've taken our eyes off the goal. We've taken our we're not focused in terms of what education should look like. We have a whole different ideologies coming in that's taking away ideas of merit, for instance. That's looking at things like DEI, which basically says, I'm going to judge you on my skin color, on your skin color, and not what's inside, what your content or character is. We left that with so many decades ago, we cannot go back. So the Merit Caucus very simply says one simple thing, that bring the best of your talents, bring your best mind, bring your best physical attributes, whatever it might be. Merit is how we win this, and merit is how we gain control, respect for each other. We put that to the top of the conversation, and our country will come back strong once again, because we do believe in merit.
You are, as we've said, a great supporter of school choice, of education freedom. You've said through expanded access to education freedom, we fulfill the promise and deliver for American families by funding students over systems and ensuring parents have a seat at the table. How can Congress do that specifically? So we can have caucuses, and we do with the School Choice Caucus, and we can have hearings, but specifically with policy proposals, what do you see happening to expand education freedom?
Well, I'm going to answer that. Before we talk about the hearings, I want to just highlight that real quickly. When you see these hearings, particularly the last couple of years that we've had when it comes to anti-Semitism or DEI, understand those hearings are not there to convince those that are sitting in front of us to change their ways. The hearings are there to make sure American people understand where we are, what's going on, and why they need to be engaged. The idea that we have to put together bills that says that parents have rights says we've come a long way from the way I was raised back in the old days when we just took that for granted. So that being said, it's a very important part of the process to educate the American people, because we're going to put together bills and legislation that we're going to depend on the American people supporting and backing us up. So in terms of bills, one of the biggest things that I'm seeing that we have a chance to do, and it's all about choice. Choice and addressing the learning loss is something we should have as a top priority right now. In order to do that, we need to make sure that, first of all, the federal government is staying within their lane, and we have something called the Educational Choice for Children's Act, which actually does this. It's very simple. It's scholarship grant organization. There's no oversight by the Department of Education. The only federal nexus is that it has to be a nonprofit, so IRS has to make sure that they are a nonprofit. And it can be put into any state across the country. So not only is there's no federal hands-on or pushing back, but there's also no state. What happens with this scholarship granting organization is that individuals and corporations can invest into that. They can donate and get tax credits. So just imagine having this pot of money where parents across the country can ask, request whether they want to go to a parochial school, private school, whether they want to do homeschooling and have the tools they need. They can actually ask for funding to take care of their kids, because the parents know best what their kids are best able to do. So it gives them that choice, even in states that do not like choice. So it to me, it's a way to give the American people what they need. The federal government can stay out of it in terms of all the strings that normally attach, and just let we the people do our best to raise our kids. That's one of the things we're working on right now, and we're looking at how can we make sure we also show the best practices across the country. Have a federal database that's here in Utah. We're doing something well. Someone in New Hampshire could take a look at it and say, this might work for us too. And we'll just see how best we can implement those practices.
Well, that federal tax credit proposal that you mentioned is a popular idea among American voters. There was a recent survey that found that support for a federal tax credit that would allow parents to send their children to a school of their choice had support of 62% of Democrats, 77% of Republicans. So this is a bipartisan support from the American people for this idea. And fortunately, there's congressional support as well. There were over 150 members of Congress who signed on to co-sponsor that Educational Choice for Children Act that you mentioned in this most recent Congress. I think it's over 30 senators. That's unprecedented to see that kind of level of support on the Hill for a federal school choice proposal. We'll see what happens going forward.
Can I say one thing about this? This is why the American people have to be engaged, have to be educated, because we can sign on to put our names on the line, but yet get to the floor and then let things go through. We just passed the Ways and Means Committee. It took a lot to get through there. Matter of fact, to get through that, they had to pull out the fact that corporations can now donate. So we have to understand we're up against still a big fight. There are people, there's ideologies do not want our kids to have choice. There's states like California that's okay. And this is a study came out in 2017. They have 75% of the Black boys cannot read and write. They're okay with that. There's just the way some ideologies are. The fact is, ignorant and free can never be. We have to have an educated populace, and those who don't want us to be educated will take us in a different direction. So we have to make sure that we are making sure the American people understand what we're doing. I think that with, again, a Senate, a House, and a President Trump, and the American people backing us up, this could be one of the most transitional, transformative pieces of legislation we've ever seen in our country.
Well, Congressman Owens, this does have widespread popular support. It does have significant support among members of Congress. Who's the biggest opposition? What's stopping it from happening?
The same groups that we saw that did the worst to our American kids. We went through COVID. That's the labor unions. It's the activists who do not want us to believe and understand and know how great our country is. Those who are against the idea of faith, family, free market education. There's an ideology that has truly been very, very active within our school system. If you wonder why kids are coming out with so much debt, with the degrees that mean absolutely nothing, and hate our country at the same time, it's that same ideology, the same hard leftist Marxist ideology that's been actually at us for a while. So we have these honest conversations about what we're up against, and we now see what it looks like. We can now do something about it. And it doesn't matter what side of the aisle we're on, by the way. If we love our kids, we want to make sure that we're not at the bottom of the ranking when it comes to our international reading, writing, and thinking and arithmetic. If we want to have the very best of the best, we can have an agreement that the best schools should be where every child has a chance to go to. If the schools are not succeeding, then they should do something else. If teachers are not good, they should do something else. If teachers are really good, we should have a way of incentivizing them so they would love to stay in their profession. They can afford to stay in their profession, and their profession is once again respected the way it was when I was growing up.
All of the things that you're saying are policies, ideas that are adamantly opposed by the labor unions that represent teachers and other government workers. So what can we do to limit their power and to push back?
That's happening now. See, it comes down to this. Our country, a republic democracy, is based on the thoughts, the will, the passions of we the people. That really comes down to. If we're frustrated about what's happening, it's because we have not yet done the job we need to do. So what do we need to do? Let's be engaged. I think COVID gave us an opportunity to see what our kids are being taught. And it didn't matter in the past, this is what I saw. Good people, good Americans that really felt bad for all the bad things happening in Detroit and California and Washington, D.C. They felt bad about it. They had sympathy for it. But they also in decent areas where they thought they can do okay. When COVID came, you started seeing what our kids were being taught, that parents are being put on the sideline, that sympathy went to empathy. Once we have our country back to being an empathetic country where we don't have to deal with exactly the issue, but feel the pain of those who do, we will then start bringing to Congress the right kind of legislative body, which is an America First body, and we will have the power to put together legislation through that will take us on to generations to come. I think we're at that moment right now where we have this, again, the opportunity to bring all these passions, these visions together, the idea of innovation. We can put it into place where kids moving forward would have unbelievable opportunity. That's what we need to make sure we stay focused on.
Let's talk beyond school choice and some of these other things that we've discussed. What are your policy priorities for the next Congress? What else do you want to see happen?
There is obviously the priority of choice, of making sure that we are back in teaching and holding our school systems, basically holding our college systems accountable. We will also, with the database we're talking about, allow parents and school districts to see what's going on across the country. So if parents are not happy with how they're ranked with the rest of the country, with ideas that are working in other countries, they can have something to do in their particular areas. The other thing we need to do in terms of how to make sure our kids, when they come through the process, can move right into a career. There's something that I had a chance to experience a few years ago. I sat down with Nick Saban, who's a coach for Alabama, one of the best, talking about sports, but he made an analogy that, to me, highlights what we can do also in workforce. He said that we can identify a young man in 7th grade. By the time he gets to 11th grade, we can offer him a scholarship. And how does that happen? Well, there's this handshake. This young man knows exactly what Alabama offers them, whether it be the colors, whether it be the past reputation, the opportunity to go to the NFL maybe, whatever it is, he's focused on getting that done. Alabama has recognized this young man and make sure he has everything he needs to know to stay focused, to qualify to be part of that process. 11th grade to come together, and it's all worked out. It's a win-win. We need to do the same thing in our workforce process. We need to think about our workforce going back as far as kindergarten, where kids are taught how to treat each other, how to share, how to talk to each other. Those little things that end up being a skill set later on. And if we learn to do that early, we can find kids that know 7th, 8th grade with parents knowing where they want to go. They don't have to spend 4 years in college when they want to go out and become a welder, a remarkable welder, and that's what their skill set is. We need to make sure that whatever the passion for our children, whatever they can succeed in, and tie them into the opportunities of that career, that industry. What is the income potential? We do that right, we will have a much more successful workforce out there and a very excited group of kids learning what they have to learn to be successful. They go through the system.
I appreciate your vision for what could be, and look forward to seeing all that unfold in the upcoming years. You did mention the importance of hearings, that this is a way of educating the American people about what's really going on in our education system, what's going on with the mechanics of government at various levels. A huge, abysmal failure of government was the FAFSA rollout. It's been described everywhere I go when I visit colleges with my high school age daughter as a debacle. And you held a very important hearing exposing just what a botched rollout that was. I'd love for you to talk about the impact of that hearing and any hearing ideas that you have for going forward.
What we're finding out, and this is why I think we're such an important part of our country's history. Education is at the core of what direction we go in. We either can control our own fate by being able to think, articulate ourselves, have the confidence to talk with other people who might not agree, or we go the other way in which we're so frustrated we can't think. Somebody disagrees, we pick up a stick and hit them. And that's kind of what we're dealing with right now. This idea with FAFSA shows the incompetency. I would say it's not, I can't even say it's not on purpose, because what happened was totally unneeded. We not only had a year before this started, the Congress gave extra time and money to make sure they were ready for this moment. When the moment came, what the Biden administration did is they had the person who oversaw this had no idea, has never experienced anything with FAFSA. He was a litigator. He was there to focus on loan forgiveness. So that if that's where your focus is, the last thing to worry about is what kids are going to have to deal with when they have to show up and they're trying to get an idea of what can they afford to get to. And who's hurt the most? First generation, kids going to college who've been working all their lives to see if maybe I can get there. Kids who say, I'm going to break the cycle of poverty and go out and get a career now that can help me move forward like we've always done in the past. The ones that got hurt worse, the ones who could not afford to make it to and navigate this process, did not have the kind of mothers that you are, right? For instance, that sit there and work through this process with their child. And it's sad to see that when you have a government agency that hurts the most vulnerable, that they are in control of this process. We need to change that. So everything we're dealing right now, this is why this election period is so important. It's so important. We have a chance to start looking, how can we bring innovation to the government? How can we make sure that bureaucrats will do nothing but sit around and put rules together that makes no sense, that we have no way of pushing back with because they have now taken over the idea of legislating? How do we get them out? We need to bring to the federal government the same thing we bring to every single industry: accountability, transparency, and results. We need to have results. If they can't give us the results, then they need to do something else. But that's where we are now. I would say, again, why I'm so excited about this moment. This has been my passion for 40 years. When I left the NFL, it was to find a way to build a business to help our at-risk kids that I saw in my community that we were losing. Here we are 40 years later. And we're having this conversation is happening every place across the country. Every place I go over this last few months, we're talking about education. We're talking about our kids' future. But what's happening in government right now that's putting regulations that makes no sense to industries to survive. Because we are here, we have the remarkable moment to reset the opportunities for our kids' future. We can do things right now that are intergenerational change. If we stay focused, if everybody makes sure that they're taking part in this process, now is not the time to sit on the sideline and wait for somebody else to take care of this major issue like we've done for the last few decades. We need to be engaged. If you care about your child, you care about the kids around the country that will impact your child, now's the time to say education has to be a priority. And we need to make sure that the best people in there that give us the best vision for what that can look like. We have so much ingenuity, so much innovative skills, so much out-of-box thinking because we're a country that's built on a free market. Let's bring that to education, and the things we'll be doing in the next few years will be remarkable.
Congressman Owens, thank you so much for your enthusiastic and steadfast support for education freedom. Thank you for caring so much about the nation's students and families and educators. And thank you for joining Freedom to Learn.
Well, Jen, thank you so much. This is a team effort, and every one of us are playing part. So thank you for everything you guys are doing, too. Together, we'll pull this together and give our kids a remarkable future for sure. Thanks so much.
Okay, Darrell. We're talking through some school choice myths, education freedom myths, and one that we're hearing a lot now that we have so many school choice programs, the opposition or the people who aren't comfortable with the idea of options and opportunities and freedom tend to claim that these programs at the state level provide education freedom to families that can already afford private school and that these families don't need state school choice programs. What are your thoughts on that?
I think the first thing is that none of these people are actually against options and opportunity. The question is at what price point they think you should be allowed to have them. And I wish they would just come out and be like, yeah, I think rich people should be able to do whatever they want to do. And if you're not rich, you should go to the school we assign you to and be happy about it. So that's kind of like the first thing. The second thing I would just say is like what nobody ever says out loud is that the system that really subsidizes the rich is the public system. And the way that they do it, I mean, it's genius, right? You say, listen, I'm going to give you this exclusive school zone. I'm going to police it, literally police it. So like if anybody tries to go to the school inside the zone that doesn't live inside the zone, we're going to arrest them, like literally arrest them. We might even make them pay to go there, or we might prosecute them to get the money back for going to the school that is in the zone. And most importantly, because we'll give you an exclusive sort of franchise to the school, because your house is in the zone, your housing value will appreciate in a way that no other asset in America does. So I just want to throw all that out there to be like, the public system is the system that ingratiates the rich the most. And that is a political calculus. I mean, it's genius. And it is why so many people, even if they choose private school, are like, no, I'm not for letting anybody unbundle the house and the school. What the public schools have right is what most political coalitions have right, is that their coalition is diverse and it includes rich people. And I have not spent my career working on trying to have rich people in the coalition of improving options for low-income kids, but I really want them in it now. Because when I look at a place like Illinois, where they had a program and they don't have it anymore.
A program that was for lower income, middle income families.
Right. When I look at charter schools in a place like Massachusetts, which have added 23 seats over the last 5 years, 23, right? These have been widely studied. They're outrageously good for low-income kids. But Mount Holyoke, Newton, and all these other places are like, nah, we don't even want charter schools. When I see those things, those are the political byproducts of not having wealthier people in the coalition for choice for low-income families. So, let's have a real conversation. I mean, let's do what the public schools did. And hopefully the programs are protected into the future and there's more opportunity for all kids.
Freedom to Learn is a production of the Defense of Freedom Institute. You can learn more about DFI at dfipolicy.org. If you have feedback or suggestions for future podcasts, please reach out to us at podcast@dfipolicy.org.